Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome back. Hope that you still have all your fingers and teeth from the weekend. Nobody got blown up or set on fire. I didn't set anybody on fire. I didn't set the kitchen on fire either. So if you know us, you know that backstory. So anyway, today I want to talk about little white lies. And no, I'm not talking about how we, count respirations, but some things that are a little more significant than that, but are unfortunately too prolific. The biggest thing that I have seen over time, and this is the one that is the most tempting for people to do because the effects can dramatically affect our job, is little white lies about medication dosing. Now, we're all human. We all mess up. I've messed up medication doses before. Michelle's messed up medication doses, I'm sure, at some point in her career. Um, but and everybody makes mistakes. And this is one of those situations where it is really important for you to tattle on yourself, because if you're lying about dosing, you have the potential to negatively impact your patients. But even if, okay, maybe that particular situation wasn't that severe, but you establish habits by the risks you take and the effects of those risks. So if you risk lying about a dose and you don't get in trouble for it, don't get caught, then it's very easy to do it again and do it again. And where I think that becomes a huge problem, especially, is dealing with narcotics. Now, I know, especially, let's take ketamine, for example, because ketamine is pretty much exclusively weight-based. So it's not like some of the other narcotics where you can have rounded average doses for adults. It's, at least around here, it's pretty exclusively weight-based, depending on the protocol that you're using, the patient's complaint, so on and so forth. But that's also one of those ones where if you don't dose correctly, the effects can be pretty fucking significant. It's not like fentanyl where, okay, you give a little too much, you can either give them some Narcan or just bump up the oxygen for a little bit, it'll pass, they'll be okay. You can pretty significantly alter someone's experience, a patient's experience, by fucking up ketamine. And getting into a habit of lying about that, just as an example, is pretty fucking significant. So, yeah, I know it's very easy because we don't want to get in trouble. How many of us are scared shitless dealing with narcotics? And if we make a mistake, we don't want to fuck it up. And I've done this before. Like, it was one of those situations where I misdosed, but it actually worked out, because I gave the procedural sedation dose of ketamine when I meant to give just the analgesic dose. But through the details on the call, there was a clinical justification for both. So I self-reported. I said, hey, I meant to give this amount. It was in my head. That was what I was aiming for, but I did the wrong calculations in my head. And the patient was fine. There was no adverse effects there. And, I had someone ask me like, well, was it a heavy 30? I said, no, it wasn't a heavy 30 milligrams. It was, I forget how much I ended up giving. I want to say it was like 60, maybe more. I forget. This was a little while ago. But my response was, hell no. I gave what I gave. I acknowledge it. And if that means I get in trouble, cool. Like I'm gonna bring it up. And well, guess what? Didn't get in trouble. I spoke with, the pertinent person up the chain and said, hey, this is what happened. This is what I did. And they're like, hey, cool. Not really worried about it. It fits into this other protocol that actually is more justifiable for the patient than just the analgesic protocol. So that's cool. That's fine. So when it comes to honesty, especially when it comes to honesty about your clinical care, usually things aren't going to go as bad for you if you fess up to it. And I've spoken with people who are, state officials who actually investigate these kinds of things. And they will outright say, as long as you are self-reporting and taking appropriate corrective action, both you individually and your agency, most places don't care about it unless, hey, maybe if there's a lawsuit that comes up, then okay, this becomes a different arena. But if the problem was caught and dealt with directly, locally, cool. nobody's really worried about it at that point. Now, this principle of the little white lies that we tell extends into other aspects of this job. And one thing that I have seen quite often is we're not very honest with people about their clinical performance. When people ask for feedback on things, we're not very good at being truly honest in a constructive way. It's either, oh, you were fine, when they really weren't, or they're being berated for something that could have just simply be a corrective conversation. There's not as much in the middle ground, and that really is where we need to be with people. We need to not lie to new people about the quality of their patient care. They need the constructive criticism. And there's times where you have to tell them, hey, you fucked up. Obviously, if you're, a field training officer, administrator, or whatever, maybe you're not supposed to curse, but point being, communicate to people clearly, directly, but don't do it in such a way that you're shutting them down. Do it in a way of, hey, here's what you did wrong. And I can see why you did that. However, here's what should have happened. Now, there are also times where it's something that's just a matter of policy and procedure that everybody fucking knows and you should have fucking done it. Like bringing in your bags to calls, bringing in your cardiac monitor, doing some of the basic things that we need to do for our job. That doesn't need to be, oh, well, I understand why you didn't bring it in. No, you're supposed to bring shit in. Period. The end. It's not complicated. So there's obviously some nuance there, but at the end of the day, don't lie to people about how they're doing. If they're doing poorly, if they're doing something that could lead to bad effects, that could have negative impacts on the agency, that individual, the rest of the shift, patients, whatever, fucking say something about it. Don't sweep it under the rug. Because the more we actually address problems internally and hold each other accountable, the higher our standard of care will be, the more confidence we'll have in our clinical care, and the better reputation we'll have with the world around us and other agencies, because we are desperately in need of that as an industry. So don't just think about little white lies as being nice to somebody, but you're actually hurting them by not having an honest conversation. And another nuance to this is management. Don't lie to your people. Don't make up policies. Don't exaggerate application of policies. Don't lie to people when they're bringing concern about something or when they have a question about something. It's okay to tell them, hey, I don't know, or I can't tell you. I can respect that honesty. If I ask you a question, you're like, hey, I'm just not at liberty to discuss that. Cool. Awesome. I'm okay with that. You have the decency to tell me to my face, I'm not able to discuss this with you. Cool. I have zero problems with that. But it's when you gaslight people and tell them, lead them down a certain way, and then, oh, just kidding, that's not actually what we're doing. That does nothing but ruin your reputation with your people. And it creates a culture of distrust and dishonesty. And then we're surprised when people start lying to their chain of command because there's not a standard set. And ultimately, the kind of behavior you're going to get is what you tolerate. And the way you establish what you tolerate is by what you actually do yourself and what you take action on yourself. So if you're not holding yourself accountable and you're not holding other people accountable, then there's going to be no accountability. There's going to be, lying back and forth everywhere. There's no honesty, no trust in an organization that runs that way. So yeah, it's very easy to want to be everybody's friend as a supervisor. It's very easy to not want to step on people's toes, to not hurt people's feelings. And obviously, you shouldn't be going out of your way just to hurt people's feelings for no fucking reason. Like, if I hurt your feelings, I did it on purpose because you fucking deserved it. But that's a whole different conversation. That is not part of how we should be operating clinically as professionals. And what have we said over and over again on the podcast over the last year and a half? Reputation trumps all. When you have a reputation for being dishonest about your patient care, about your leadership, about how you treat people, then it's going to catch up to you and it's going to be a problem and everybody's going to know. And it's going to destroy your career because that's something that's pretty hard to fucking come back from. Once you've broken that trust with people, whether it's in what example you're setting as a clinician or as a leader or just as a coworker. It's pretty fucking hard to get back because let's face it, everybody in EMS talks. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows somebody else. No matter where you go to work, somebody knows someone there. So the little white lies will get us in a ton of trouble. And we need to start, as part of building a culture of accountability and professionalism, we need to start holding each other to this standard more and not tolerating these little lies. Again, we joke about respirations. Okay, generally speaking, as you go, you get a pretty good idea for how fast someone's breathing. I can palpate a pulse and generally tell you within, 10, 20 beats a minute what their heart rate is just by feel. Now, ultimately, you should be verifying that, and that's why we have tools to verify those things. But the point is, we should be doing what is in the best interest of our patients. We should be taking care of each other as fellow professionals. And as leaders, we should be setting examples for those above and below us. Because the chain of command needs to hold itself accountable too. Because lying within the chain of command is just as bad, if not fucking worse. Because the people that you should be trusting, someone on the ground, well, if your middle management isn't being trusted by the people above them, then what kind of a team do you have? What kind of establishment, what kind of agency do you have if there's not that internal integrity? Without that, we're fucking dead in the water. So this is another one of those things that it needs to start with each of us as individuals, setting that standard and behaving accordingly. And it doesn't matter if someone else is being honest. It doesn't matter if everyone else is is lying about this, that, or whatever protocol they don't want to take action on or whatever. It doesn't matter. Each of us is responsible for taking that initiative on our own and raising the bar. So the takeaway I would have for today is do a self-inventory. Make sure that you are doing what you expect from other people. Make sure that you are setting a standard where you are in your locus of influence and let that spread outward. And sometimes that means having hard conversations with people and telling people when they're being shitbags and when they need to step up and do it in a way that actually means something, and make sure that you don't destroy your own credibility by playing the same game as they do. So that's it for the day. See you guys tomorrow. Be safe. Bye-bye.